What's up guys, it's your boy Rabnut, and today I'm going to be going over how to build trees like this. So I'm going to be going over all of the current Minecraft tree types at 1.16 even, excluding the nether ones. So obviously that's the oak, spruce, birch, jungle, acacia and dark oak. So I'm going to be going into a time lapse where I explain my thought process and how I build these sort of trees. So yeah, make sure you like the video if you enjoy it. So, and let's get right in. I'm invisible. Let's get right into it. Right then guys, so the first tree we're going to be doing is an oak tree. So as you can see in the top corner, I have a first person view of what I'm doing. And as you can see, we're just building up this first part here. So what you want to do is have a larger base to the tree, and the way you do that is by using sort of like one block center and then putting a bunch of blocks around that. And a way you can make sort of like roots is you can sort of add the wood blocks into the ground. So what you will want to do is use wood blocks and not like log blocks. So you want it to be 360. They are in the game now, so you should definitely take advantage of them. Obviously they are a bit more expensive, so if you're in survival then you may want to mix and match them. So as you can see, all we've been doing here is just building out these branches in random directions. And the way you kind of want to do this is you want to have sort of like a lower layer and a higher layer. So you want like 3 or 4 branches going sort of on a downward angle, and then you want 3 or 4 branches going sort of upwards, and then 1 branch going like directly upwards into the sky. So as you can see here, we've done that, and a way to sort of like show, oh, we're going to be putting the leaves here, is by putting on some fences on these branches. That just adds a little bit more sort of like extra sort of to show where everything's going to be, and it also just shows how it's sort of, it just sort of adds a little bit more of sort of like extra little branches onto it. So as you can see, we've just added some leaves to it. All you want to do is just try and cover the top of it. You don't want to cover the entire branch, you just want to go sort of on the top and the sides, so the inside of the tree is sort of free of leaves. So if later on, we'll probably have a look soon, but under most of these trees, if you have a look, you can see that the you can sort of look sort of through the tree to the sky. So as you can see under here, we can still see the branches underneath. They're not covered by the leaves themselves, and we won't really be able to see it with this tree, but this is the spruce one. So as you can see, this one's going to be a bit bigger than the other one. It goes straight up into the sky, and what you want to do is just add larger branches towards the bottom heading downwards. So the branches get slowly smaller as you go up. So as you can see, it's just sort of like a pine tree sort of thing, and as you can see, they get smaller and smaller the higher you get up. We're again using fences. We try to get the fence that's closest to what the actual wood looks like. So as you can see, we use dark oak here, and the way you want to do it with this tree is you want to have the spruce sort of go sort of like blanket the spruce wood, so it doesn't have to touch the actual trunk, it just sort of has to go out and try to touch all of the branches, sort of like it's being sort of like pulled out, like the branch is sort of holding it at the bottom, it's attached at the top, and you're just sort of like pulling it, sort of like, I don't know, a blanket, as I've said before. So as you can see, we're just doing that. It's going to be, this one's quite tall, and that's sort of the main thing about it. And at the bottom, we've been filling it in to sort of make it look a bit thicker, but the actual trunk gets smaller the higher you get up. So, obviously there are multiple different things you could do with this. Obviously, the obvious choices of blocks are leaf blocks for this. But if you want to go for an autumn style and you don't want to use a texture pack, we can obviously mix in some sort of like wool and glass and glazed terracotta and stuff like that. I haven't done that in this video, but if you want sort of a video on that, let me know. I'll probably do sort of like a video on how blocks can be used in interesting ways. So now we're going into the birch tree. This is sort of like the spruce tree, except the sort of like going the branches getting smaller as you go up starts a little bit later. So there's a short sort of like part at the bottom where there's nothing, and then you go a bit and it's sort of like a sort of egg-shaped tree. We'll see it a bit more in a minute, but as you can see, it's quite wide towards the bottom, and then we just got 1 or 2 branches going up. And as you can see, it sort of rounds out towards the bottom. I think it looks pretty cool. So in this case, we're using walls for the sort of thinner branches. Fences work better, but obviously no one's really going to see it that much. So you just want to use any block that's pretty close to the actual thing. And as you can see, we're just using sort of like leaves to sort of hang off the edge, sort of like vines. So, yep. Right then, so other things, obviously for the wood you don't have to use like pure wood, you can use like stripped wood or something like that. So obviously for an acacia tree you might want to, instead of using the grey wood, you might want to use sort of like a stripped acacia wood, as that sort of got a more sort of like orangey sort of wood texture to it, and I think that looks pretty nice. Okay then, so next we have a jungle tree. So as you can see, this one is also quite large, and for this one's slightly different. It's sort of got like a multiple canopies on it. So I don't know if you've ever sort of seen a tree like that, but when the branches go out, they have individual sort of canopies attached to them. In this case, the tree's quite small, so the individual canopies sort of merge together to create an interesting sort of thing. But as you can see, the tree is just getting built up, and I think it looks pretty interesting. Sort of the same way we did it in the other ones with the sort of like branches. So you just want to, on the oak tree that is, you just want to have like a lower layer, an upper layer, and then sort of like a bit going up the middle. And in this case, we're using spruce fences, like we did on the excuse me, on the oak tree. However, it doesn't always. It doesn't really fit here as well. So as you can see with the leaves, we're sort of focusing on individual branches, and it sort of looks pretty cool, and it sort of makes it look like there are sort of multiple trees growing off it in some way, sort of like multiple canopies, multiple sort of areas of the tree, and I think it looks pretty nice. So yeah, so all we're doing is just covering all of these bits. I recommend doing the lower layers first in this case, and then going up. So as you can see, we're just covering up this part here. Then we're going to be covering up the higher layers, so we're just doing that. Covering up that one. Obviously this tree is going to be a bit more rounder, and we kind of want it to sort of round out and have as much sort of leaf as possible. Something you may want to try and do with your tree is to sort of have it so you can sort of see through the canopy. It's a lot easier to do with shaders on, but obviously in vanilla Minecraft you can see through it. So if we go under the tree, which we probably will do in a minute, we can sort of look up and see sort of what's going on. As you can see, I have been adding some leaves sort of draping over the edge. These are sort of vines, which are especially important on a jungle tree, as that's sort of a major part of the tree itself. And I think that's very important, especially for a tree of this kind. Next we've got an acacia tree. This one's going to be quite a bit different, as it's actually going to be wider than it is tall by quite a large margin. This is because real acacia trees are sort of like this, so there are a lot of thin branches sort of going out from the trunk, and then the leaves sort of go over the top in a sort of like very flat dome sort of pattern. Well, not pattern, but yeah, you know what I mean. So as you can see, I've been trying to attempt this here. So I just did a sort of similar thing here, just tried to make it sort of more wide. Similar thing to the jungle with the sort of, what am I saying? Just with the sort of branches going sort of out. And as you can see, I used walls as a sort of fence part here. And as you can see, all we're doing here is we're just bringing out sort of this like as a blanket again. It's just trying to touch all of the edges sort of as it's been like pulled taut and sort of pulled out from that part. I think it looks pretty good. So as you can see, we're just trying to cover up all of these branches, making it so a few dip down a little bit. Look pretty good. And as you can see, yep, so we're just doing that, sort of going around the edges. This one, as you can see from the underneath, it looks really cool because you can sort of see through all of the different plants, and I think it looks really nice. So after this one, we're going to be going over the dark oak one. I think this one is a very good one for the sort of autumny style leaves, but on this one I just did normal ones. So in this case it's just sort of a bigger version of the oak tree, just going over stuff we've already done on that. So as you can see, it's just got some pretty big like roots, a bit thicker on the trunk, and goes very quickly into the sort of outer like layer of the canopy. So as you can see, it's just going out. Got some interesting shapes on here. Obviously we're going to be using the dark oak fence for this because it fits with the colour pretty well. Oh, and as you can see, I think it looks pretty good. So sorry, my computer just the screen is just turned off. Guess I wasn't really moving my mouse around. So as you can see, we're just putting on the leaves, just trying to cover up the top bits, making it so you can sort of see sort of into the canopy from underneath. I think it looks pretty cool. It's sort of just very similar to the oak one. And yeah, so that's pretty much all of the trees I'm going to be covering today. If you have any sort of like specific types of trees that you want me to build and do a tutorial on, I can easily do a part 2 to this and try to build some non-Minecraft trees. So yeah, so we're just adding some finishing touches, and then I'm going to be going over them sort of like individually in a little bit more detail like right now. So I will see you guys in a minute. Right then guys, so as you can see, we have finished building the trees. So obviously we have the oak, the spruce, the birch, the jungle, the acacia and the dark oak. I'll just be going over all of them individually, but I'm sure I've already said most stuff I'm going to be saying here in the time lapse. So first of all, we have the oak tree. As you can see, this is the simplest one out of them all basically. This is probably the one that you learnt the most from, as this is just the simplest. As you can see, all it is a bunch of the branches going out from a main trunk. It's a pretty thin trunk, and all of the leaves just sort of go over it, sort of like a blanket, but just sort of like that idea of using a blanket over it. But this one sort of is a bit different, as you can kind of see through, especially if you're underneath, you can sort of see through the leaves up into the sky. I think it's really nice, and that's definitely something you should try to do. Next we have this sort of like spruce one. This is by far the biggest, and as you can see, it's got a very thick trunk which gets thinner as you go up, and all of the branches sort of go out larger towards the bottom and then like thinner towards the top, and then the leaves just sort of rest over those branches, sort of like a water almost, sort of bouncing off and going sort of off one branch to the next and sort of getting like wider out as it goes down. I really like this one. I think it would, so if you make a few of these and just like copy and paste them around a forest, it would look really good. So this is definitely a good one, and it's very original from the others. Next one is a birch one. This is just kind of a weird one. So it's somewhat like this one, as the branches are larger at the base and then get smaller as you go up. But this one's a little bit higher off the ground in terms of like scale, because obviously this one is a bit bigger, and sort of like if this was the same scale as that, then it would be taller, but obviously it's a bit smaller. So yeah, it just works sort of in the same way, just using the birch sort of wood, and I think it looks pretty good. Obviously it's sort of a bit weird looking, and I think the best way really to use birch is in a sort of oak setting. So next we can go on to the jungle tree. This one I've sort of just made it so there are individual sort of canopies on each of these branches, and then they all sort of join together to form like a larger one. I really like this one. I think it's really cool. It's pretty sort of like thick at the base, and a main sort of feature of this one is that these sort of leaf blocks sort of drape down over the end like vines. Obviously you could use vines, but I don't particularly like them as much as just using leaves in this case. Next we have an acacia one. So as you can see, this one's a bit different, as it's a lot wider than it is tall. So as you can see, it's got quite a thick little base here, but it goes out a very long way to collect like as much sunlight as possible. So the leaves sort of rest over like the branches, sort of like a blanket, like on those ones over there. But this one sort of lies in a different way, sort of more flat, on top of it, and I think it's really nice. It's obviously got a lot of shade underneath it. You can obviously see that a lot more of the shaders, but I think it's really nice, and I just really like this build. Next we have a sort of dark oak. This is sort of the most simple one. It's pretty similar to the oak one over there, but basically it's just got a thicker stem, I don't know, a few more leaves, sort of larger sort of canopy. I thought another way you could do this is by using sort of like autumn leaves, but obviously I don't have that. So yeah, I think this is pretty nice. Obviously I could do a tutorial on how to sort of like make like pink leaves and orange and red leaves sort of for autumn, but yeah, I think it's just a normal sort of looking tree. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was informative on how to build trees. So yeah, make sure you like the video and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. So bye.